February 23rd. Just reflecting on that dream. My dad. I hadn't had one like that with my dad. And I remember wondering, will I ever have one with my dad? Specifically just my dad. And his health. I mean, I didn't go to bed thinking about him. Not that it's a bad thing. Dad, if you're watching this, I love you, but you know, just life happens, and I was more focused on the poems that I was trying to kind of work on to submit. But I was wondering about like Alec Baldwin. I was like, why am I dreaming about Alec Baldwin? And then so I looked him up. He's an Aries. My dad's an Aries. And it was just interesting, the unfolding of the first scene where I'm embracing Alec Baldwin. Like there was this connection, like this, like it was just an embrace. And it felt like there was this, like there was an intimacy in that embrace with Alec Baldwin. And it triggered in me memories of my dad and me and the progression of our relationship. And I don't know if I mentioned, when I was younger, I was triangulated unknowingly. I don't think they knew what they were doing. And they were just reacting, really. And I didn't know what was happening. I was the oldest. And I remember my dad would disclose things to me, and you know, being a kid in a Latino family, you know, you're not supposed to talk back to your elders. You're not supposed to, you know, confront your elders, and so he would tell me things. And I remember thinking to myself, why isn't he telling my mom? Like there was just this knowing that this information isn't something that I'm supposed to know. And a lot of it was surrounding he was processing his trauma, his experiences, his other marriage, his, you know, how he came to be with my mom. And I remember even bringing it up in therapy. I was just like, you know, what kid... I mean, when a kid finds out that your parents weren't, that at least one parent didn't love the other parent when they got married, like, how are you supposed to interpret that as a kid, right? But that he grew to love her after, which, you know, in many cases, right, arranged marriages isn't, and that, like, that's how it is, right? You don't fall in love immediately. You learn respect, and you go through that process. You know, generalization, right? Of course, there's it's not like that for all cases, but so that got triggered in me in terms of my relationship with my dad, because there was always this triangulated relationship that I had with my dad, and then that I had with my mom, and that I was always in between them. And there were, you know, there's an element of responsibility, right, that comes as an older sibling, older child. You kind of become the parent for your siblings to a certain degree when they're younger, and even to support your parents, right? Especially because my dad would work long hours, and my mom was learning English and trying to go to school, and I would be her helper when my sister would get in trouble at school. Like, I would be the mediator and the translator, and you know, I know I'm not the only one who's experienced this. And when my mom held back from sharing until I confronted her about, you know, me realizing, right, that I wasn't in a preemie. I was like, I know I wasn't a preemie. So, and the wedding dates don't match, you know. And that's when she opened up about how things unfolded for them. And I remember one of the biggest rifts between my mom and I was when my dad put me in charge. We were selling the house, or trying to sell the house, because my dad couldn't afford it anymore, in the affluent community that we lived in. And my dad was on disability because of his health issues and his accidents, and we just couldn't afford living there anymore. And he was going away, and he put me in charge. And I remember my mom was like, I don't want to sell the house. Like, we'll figure it out. I don't want to sell the house. And she's telling me this, and there was a buyer. I think there was someone who was interested. And so I signed off, because I'm like, well, my dad left me with this responsibility. What am I supposed to do, right? What am I supposed to do? How do you pick between your parents? Because they were never on the same page. Yeah. And even after that, there was always this element of like, whenever my dad had a crisis, like everything dropped to attend to his crises. And there was these cultural expectations of like, well, you have to take care of your parents, right? And not that it's anything bad or not, but it's like, how do you do that when they don't want to be taken care of? And they're not old enough where they're not out of their mind, or not of sound mind. But how do you do that when they still have free will and agency, right? And they're just making poor choices, like choice after choice after choice, and you're just like, and everyone around is also like, well, you got to talk to them. Why is that responsibility now on me, right? Until I realized, I was just like, no more. Like we actually left one of our homes, the one home that we really enjoyed having, that we were renting in the high desert, because my dad was having heart issues then. That's when we first found out he had heart issues. And but he was randomly fainting and hurting himself when he would faint, and he would black out. And so he moved in for a little bit until we figured out what was going on. But he would take off. Like he was never home. He would always take off. And then we had a challenge, and I even confronted him about it. I said, why is it that after every challenge you run away? Right? Because, I had done that before. So I knew what he was doing. And he's like, and that's when he realized that he didn't realize that he was running away after every challenge instead of sitting with it, right? And so we moved to be closer to the hospital, because we lived so out in the desert that there wasn't the hospital then. It wasn't nearby. There wasn't like a Kaiser nearby. Only to find out that last minute he changed his mind. And so then we were left without a home. And that's how I ended up at my brother's. And that, I think that was one of the last times where I'm just like, I'm done dropping everything for him. Like, he's a grown man, right? Leaves the hospital, AMA, and I'm just like, that's his choice. That's his choice. I remember when I get the phone calls from people like, your dad left the hospital. And I remember once I saw him and he still had like all the gear. He just took off. And I was just like, okay. What can you do, right? And that's when I realized that I'm like, his body is falling apart, and all he has left are his choices. And the more we resisted it, the more he latched on to his choices. So I gave up. I was like, okay, give him back his power. Here you go. Right? Make your own choices. Be free. And so it's not that I don't worry or that I don't care. It's just now that I understand. And I just accept where he's at and the choices that he's making. And I'm okay with that. And I remember for so long preparing myself for him leaving, because he was the one preparing me for that, because he would leave every time. So many times he would say his last words, because he was never coming back. And I'd go through that cycle only to find that he'd come back. And then the last time I was just like, I'm not gonna play that game anymore. I remember telling him that. I'm like, I was at the point of the end at that point. Like, I was struggling with my ex, and it was like the year before I decided to leave. My dad moved in with us one more time, and there was just tension, and I was just so uncomfortable. And my dad and his wife picked it up, and they knew something was wrong. But I was playing it out. I was so stressed out. I remember being just so stressed out then. But yeah. And so there was an element where the relationship with my dad, that there was triangulation, and I kind of became like a substitute parent or partner for a time being, just as my brother was to my mom. And that's what got triggered, was just the unfolding of our relationship. And just, I was a little shocked. I remember in the dream being a little shocked at when I saw him on the floor in the second scene, where it wasn't Alec Baldwin anymore. It was actually my dad on the floor. And I couldn't tell if he had stopped breathing or if he held his breath, because he's been through so much pain that he has a high pain tolerance, and he can breathe through the pain. Like, he's done enough of those breathing techniques where he can actually sustain that. And like, it's fascinating to see what you can do with your body. And I remember when he just let out that last breath, but I couldn't tell, like, it didn't feel like it was a last breath, like gonna die breath, or if it was a like I'm just breathing through the pain breath, because that, I feel like that's what it seemed like to me. But I remember there was a slight panic, only because I couldn't find the damn phone to call for help. And then I was resorting to, okay, CPR. Like, I had training for years on that, right? Like, I know what I need to do. And when I was about to do it, that's when he did the last breath. So and at that point I was just like, like waiting, like, to see what I needed to do next. So I didn't know, I didn't think I was gonna dream about my dad and his health. And I mean, I have wondered why he didn't respond back. I was gonna get him a mat for his bed, and I sent him the link, and I told him to let me know what items he wanted so I could get it for him, but he hasn't responded back to that. And I don't talk to my parents every day. Like I mentioned, I've never, because of the type of relationships that I've had with them, I had to create distance between both of them, from one degree to another. But that was just interesting that I dreamt about him. Yeah. I wonder if I'll dream about my mom next. And I wonder what that'll look like. I mean, she's been in my dreams, but usually when it's regarding this person from my past, she's been consistent in those dreams. With my sister, I don't think I've had one. I'm trying to remember if I've had one with just me and my mom. Well, and just the recent resolution, I guess, with my childhood molestation and yeah. So we'll see. Just want to share that, but because I looked it up. And excuse me. And so I noticed that they're a year apart. Alec Baldwin and my dad. And yeah. So yeah. Just wanted to speak to that. Okay. That's all. Bye. Hi. My name is Yubi, and in case you haven't figured it out, this footage is capturing my experience as I learn to navigate my personal spiritual awakening. I am learning that this experience is unique to each one of us, in whatever way we believe we are embracing living our truth. This just happens to be my journey. And despite me having a graduate degree and a license in clinical social work, this by no means is intended to replace any type of mental health advice. This is just me on a personal level, documenting my experience, shedding light on the truth that I am learning and discovering for myself, and really inviting you along for the ride. If by some magical chance you find this content to be helpful in any way, shape, or form, please click the like button, share the message, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have an Instagram account, a personal one, and one specifically for this channel that you're more than welcome to check out. I'm an open book. I have also created t-shirt designs. I'm wearing my favorite one right now, which is the North Node design, but I have that and other things that you can look at inspired by this process and journey, and I have the link in the description box as well as in the about section of my YouTube channel. So you're more than welcome to check those items out. Any type of support is great. Again, if you find this content really helpful or meaningful, sometimes when we take that step and be vulnerable, with showing what's inside our hearts and what's really our truth, we realize that we're much more connected than what we thought we were. And so I hope that as I'm living this experience and that you find some type of truth for yourself, or find some type of ability to heal in some way just by relating, just by knowing that you're not alone. That really has been my goal with this process, not just being able to connect with others, but really for my own healing. It's definitely been a therapeutic experience and a very creative one for myself. So I thank you, and I wish you all the best, and we'll see what else comes next for me.